Welcome to the Voice of San Diego at Home, April 22nd, 2020. That is a Wednesday. Wednesday is what we're talking about today. Wednesday, we have an amazing show today. We've got a lot to go over. Huge story we just posted on voiceofsandiego.org. I'm going to talk about it. We're going to go through a lot of different things with regard to, obviously, this crazy world we're in right now. Big story just posted by Will Hunsberry on voiceofsandiego.org. Don't cheat. Don't go to it yet. Go to it after this. Let's talk for a little bit. We have a lot to go over. Got a new mic. Hope it sounds okay. Let me know if it doesn't. Also, send your questions. This is Wednesday. We're supposed to be all about asking questions. Let's get right into the news. So, first up, parks. Parks open, huh? We got some news today that, or obviously yesterday, that the parks finally were open. This was the scene at our local park. They took down the plastic fencing they'd put up to try to keep people out, but this was what remained. All right, guys, we got you. Okay, we see you. Thank you for doing that at least. Very excited to get back into some of the neighborhood parks. Just to be clear, Balboa Park and the regional parks like Mission Bay Park are mostly closed still. You can still get into parts of Balboa Park, but not the Central Mesa. Mission Bay Park is off limits. A lot of places still not the same as they used to be, but it was nice to get a little different situation. All right, next up. We're going to talk about the main graph. Let's get right into it. Hey, buddy. Let's go right to here. And, oops, this is what we wanted. All right, let's get into this. This is that county graph. Glad they do that. Let's zoom into a very important story, though, that we're following right now. And this is the situation in South Bay where we are seeing a kind of spike in some of these coronavirus cases, the testing there. It is not good. A lot of theories and actual facts about what's going on. Appears that a bunch of expats or people who live or share residence in Baja California, mostly U.S. citizens, 95% of them, according to the county, are coming back up for treatment and ending up in South Bay hospitals. There's a lot of people sick in South Bay hospitals. There was some news about this and discussion about this in our border report. Chris Van Gorder, the chief executive officer of Scripps Health, said that while 6 to 7% of novel coronavirus tests administered across the Scripps system come back positive, the rate is 17% at Scripps Chula Vista. 17%. We're going to talk about testing. We have a big story, big story that's just come out on voiceofsandiego.org about that main story about testing. You'll want to check out that, but we have a major issue in South Bay developing with some of these cases. It appears that we've had a little bit of a spike yesterday. They announced their biggest death toll yet in one day, at least for the last several weeks, and a little bit of a spike in the number of cases. And it seems like that's predominantly based about what is happening in South Bay. So we're going to be following that closely. It came out the same day, of course, that the county of San Diego grappled with a proposal from two of the county supervisors. The county, of course, is in charge of public health. The city's in charge. Various cities are in charge of their own way of implementing those guidance points that they get from the county. The county of San Diego is run by 5 county supervisors. 5 county supervisors that represent the entire county, various parts of it. Two of those county supervisors, Supervisor Jim Desmond and Supervisor Kristen Gaspar from the northern part of the county, North Coastal and North Inland for him. They proposed that they wanted a resolution to go lobby the governor to open everything up or open a lot of things back up by May 1st. But the 3 other county supervisors, Supervisor Diane Jacob, Nathan Fletcher, and Greg Cox said no. We're going to leave it up to the public health officials. And that measure, that effort came the very same day they announced this giant spike in deaths and the South Bay situation. So something to watch there very closely as we go through this. Now, we are going to be talking and finding out there's a terrible situation developing, it seems like, in Tijuana. Hospitals overwhelmed and struggling with a lot of cases. Seems like we may have shipped them the coronavirus, and now they're dealing with it. And some of the people who live there who have U.S. citizenship and can get past the non-essential closure of the border are filling some of these hospitals. All right, in other news, before we get to our main story, big story again, other news, budget catastrophe at the city of San Diego yesterday. Mayor Kevin Faulconer went to the city council and said, you remember that budget I released last week, that proposed budget? So I got some news. It looks like that was already $50 million out of date. $50 million we need to come up with, in addition to all of the things that I said we need to cut $250 million. They're talking about a $300 million deficit, $300 million deficit. But okay, remember, he's doing two things right now. We are in the late stages of last year's budget that they passed last June, the end of last June. That budget is almost over. They need to put a new one out for the next July to June. But they have to check how that budget, the current one, is doing. And that's called a May revise. So they have to check in, hey, how did the revenues actually come out? Remember, a budget is a plan for how you'll spend money. And you plan based on how much money you think you'll get over the year. And so if you get less than that, you got to change things. If you get more, that's great, fantastic. If you get less, you got to change things right in the middle of the year. And that is what's going to happen with the May revise. We don't know what the May revise yet. But the proposal for next year's budget is already out, $250 million cuts. And they said it's too late. We need to do $50 million more. Yikes, $50 million. It's a lot. Couple of things to keep in mind, though. The city of San Diego is eligible for $248 million. $248 million from the CARES Act, the federal legislation that was passed to help recover. We might be able to get a lot of money from the federal legislation that was passed. A lot of people brought up, what about the land we're selling from Qualcomm Stadium? What about that land that we're selling to San Diego State? Already factored in. They better sell it because that's already factored in. The city of San Diego is dealing with a massive budget deficit, and we are going to be following that. There are some hopes that the federal government will come in with that CARES Act money. They are eligible. We don't know if we're going to get it. Eligible for $248 million. Stay tuned for that. Big issue there. What happened? Well, he says that $50 million that they have to add to the budget deficit because they didn't anticipate that the convention center would basically shut down for the rest of the year, which seems like where we're headed. Comic-Con hadn't announced when he did his budget proposal that it was canceling. Obviously something he could have predicted, but still major blow to the city's budget. Not only does the city get hotel room tax from people who come to stay to go to Comic-Con, but obviously they go out to eat, they pay sales tax, all kinds of things. All of that money has vanished. It's gone. So the city of San Diego, of course, is dealing with that incredible financial catastrophe. And we will be following that closely because they're going to have to make decisions about rec centers, about libraries, about parks, about firefighters, about police, about trash, all kinds of things, graffiti abatement, and arts organizations. It's the array of things that could feel some pain because of this budget catastrophe is a long list. All right, let us get into the main story, our big story for the day. Let's turn to South Korea for a moment. This is what it looks like in Seoul, South Korea right now. This is Bloomberg News. Look at these people. Remember just sitting at a table talking? Hey, can you believe Ralph said that at the company meeting today? Oh, yeah, that's crazy. Remember that? Remember just talking, shopping, just having a straw in your drink and getting served with. Well, that's what's happening, and it's happening in South Korea because of testing and tracing. They're testing people, they're identifying who has the disease, they're isolating them, and they're supporting them. We can't see the SARS-CoV-2 virus, right? Unless you have an electron microscope, can't see it. So the only way we can see it is by testing. Remember, Chris Van Gorder from Scripps said that 17% of the people tested in his South County hospital, Scripps, South Bay, 17% of the people tested are coming out positive. That means that a lot more people have it. You want that number down at 3 or 4% because that means that a lot fewer people out there have it. If you're testing people and 17% have it, that means that a lot more people have it out there. So where's the test? Where are the tests? We know that testing is our way out. The governor has said that every day of the last few days. Testing is the way out. Testing is our eyes on this virus. Testing. Dr. Eric McDonald at the County of San Diego, he says we need to get up to 10,000 tests per day or more. We are at about 1,125 tests per day right now. Not enough. Not enough to have clear eyes on what this virus is doing to our community, and therefore not enough to get us out of this darkness. What we found out, Will Huntsberry today, great story, voiceofsandiego.org. What we found out is that that's just 25% of our testing capacity. We could be doing right now 4 times those tests, 4 times that many tests every single day. So what's going on? Dr. Eric McDonald, again, we just mentioned him, suggested that a lack of personal protective equipment could be the cause. The county would like everyone with symptoms to be tested, said McDonald. But the key is if we have enough protective equipment to protect those caregivers who are going to give those tests. But several hospitals indicated to our Will Huntsberry that a lack of protective equipment has nothing to do with their unused capacity. They simply lack a wider testing strategy. Spokesman for Sharp Healthcare said Sharp's hospitals are capable of doing 950 tests per day. But he said that number is not being met because Sharp has been following the county guidelines to only test the most ill or at-risk people. UC San Diego, they've decided to start testing all the people who come in, even asymptomatic individuals, which is great. And guess what their positive rate is? 3%. 3% of the people they're testing are coming back positive, which means they're starting to really get to that point where we have a handle on how many people have this. That's where we need to get to. We need more tests. So last week, you might remember I talked about this. You might remember I brought this up. After Voice of San Diego reported the testing had actually gone down in recent weeks, county officials announced they would create a task force to examine how to ramp up testing. There's an issue, though. They're not going to meet until Monday. Can you meet? Sorry, I'm touching my face. Sorry about that. You ever see movies now where people are rubbing their eyes and stuff, and you're like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Can't rub your eyes anymore. Testing, where are the tests? Where are the tests? We need the tests. Let's look at the map again. Let's look at this map again. The community, this is This is the county of San Diego. South Bay showing a spike. Yes. Are the testing stats somewhere I can share? Yes. Go to voiceofsandiego.org. Main story right now. Voiceofsandiego.org. Check it out. Great story by Will Huntsberry. Bottom line is they could be doing about 4 or 5 times the number of tests they're doing, but they are confused about the guidelines and whether they need protective equipment. Are you taking questions? Absolutely, Donovan Jones. Bring your questions. Let's hear them. I'm here for you. Like to hear your questions. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant, though, if you don't mind, while I wait for some of your big questions to come in. Check it out today at Voice of San Diego, or at not Voice of San Diego. The New York Times is another major journalism operation in the country. There's Voice of San Diego, New York Times. New York Times has a piece today by Farhad Manjoo, columnist, usually writes about tech. He's based in the Bay Area, and he writes a column about how hard it's been for him and his wife. Obviously, he's privileged. He understands that, talks about it. Him and his wife both work full-time, and they've been trying to educate their children in this period, and it's obviously impossible, very hard. A lot of us are going through that. He makes a very clear and good point. All this talk about reopening the economy, you hear about, I need my hair cut, I need my eyebrows waxed. Any list about reopening the economy needs to start with schools and functioning daycare. Let me just make that clear. There's if you have a list and it's like tire stores or beauty salons, restaurant, nothing works. This economy does not function without schools and functioning daycares. That's it. That's the main. It's like saying, hey, we need to get everybody driving again, but the roads don't work. Get the roads working. That should be the main thing. What are we going to do to give functioning schools? His column today really hit a nerve, and it pairs well with another piece this week by the Union Tribune's Kristen Takeda. She writes about education, and she said she listened to Bob Moeller, program specialist for student support services at the County Office of Education. Mueller says schools should start planning for the possibility that they may have to abandon a typical 5 days a week in-person school attendance model. Instead, they should plan to switch to non-classroom-based instruction. Non-classroom-based school can mean independent study where students do their work at home, using schools as learning centers where students check in face-to-face virtually with teachers once a week or so for support. What? That was like reading a zombie novel. I don't want that. That world, I don't want that. They need to go to school. Schools need to do the educating. If schools are saying they can't do the educating, then they better tell us that directly, because we're going to find other options. This is a nightmare. Nobody's going back to work. This economy does not function with everybody being home except for a face-to-face opportunity once a week or so. That ain't it, Chief. That ain't it, Chief. Go back and come up with something else. Try again. The county office got mad at me because I said, try again. Try again. I appreciate the effort. I know we got to think outside the box. I know things are changing, but try again, because nothing works with that. Nothing works with face-to-face virtually once a week or so. There's no economy with that, with us having to stay and make sure the kids are okay every single day. We've set up an economy where both parents often have to work. If you're a parent in a family that one parent doesn't have to work, fantastic. Great work. Good job. You've set up yourself for a significant success in life. But that ain't it, Chief. That ain't it. Once a week or so? Once a week or so? All right, yes, let's take some questions. Anybody got anything? Oh, yeah, there was a big issue that came up with the tickets. I talked about this Monday, but let's talk about it again. SDPD did not give citations or otherwise enforce the rules about gathering in public to the people who protested this weekend. I think that's probably the right call. We do not want police to be cracking down on First Amendment activities. I don't like that. You don't need to be busting people's heads if they're protesting. That never comes out good. I've seen it too many times where police trying to shut down a protest makes it a lot bigger deal than it ever needed to be. But you better do it equitably. And there was news that came out that the county sheriff made a decision not to enforce those laws when the Encinitans protested, but then they were given tickets to people who were protesting outside the Otay Mesa Detention Center for immigrants. No. I understand having some leniency for First Amendment activities. You do not want to be busting people's heads if they are exercising their right to free speech. Very, 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 very passionate about free speech over here at voiceofsandiego.org. But you better do it equitably. And if a bunch of people who happen to be a little bit browner than others are getting citations for protesting when people in Encinitas are not, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. Yes, ask questions. Let's get those questions in. I'm ready. Come on in. Ask us anything. What do you got? If I don't know the answer to it, if I do not know the answer to it, which chances are I might not, or chances are I probably don't, then I'll see if somebody can get to it. We'll come back with something. So yes, what is your questions? I'm into it. These testing stats, yes, go to voiceofsandiego.org. Right now, our main story on Voice of San Diego. Let's actually pull this up real quick. I don't know if everybody's familiar with how Voice San Diego works. We have our main site here. This is our main story. Officials and hospitals differ on why San Diego is testing far below capacity. This is the story we're talking about. Post this in the chat. This works. This is crazy. How will the virus issue affect the races for mayor, county supervisor? Good question. Here's a couple of stories to watch. So we've got, this is the main story I've been talking about. Officials, hospitals differ on why San Diego is testing far below its capacity. Big story today too by Lisa Halverson. I actually haven't read it yet, so I'm not going to talk about it yet. But she's been working on it for a while. We've been told the convention center is taking in people from the street. Talked to somebody who could not get in. All of that up. Donovan State Prison has started a report. Positive. This is our main site. Here's our main site. We do the morning report every day. All right, let's get to some of these questions. How will the virus affect the races for mayor, county supervisor, etc.? Great question. Here's how I would put it. It changes everything. Remember when the mayor's race was about short-term vacation rentals, scooters? Remember scooters? Do you guys remember scooters? We were like, oh, scooters. Yeah, those issues are gone. The main issue in the mayor's race is who can competently manage the city through its most significant financial crisis, perhaps in history. You know, and this includes the time 10, 15 years ago when we were dealing with massive deficits from increased pensions and other things. I think that the debate becomes What do you preserve? What are your priorities when you cut? How do you help the most people? How do you creatively protect services? How do you deal with employee unions? 6 of them, 6 City of San Diego employee unions are under negotiation right now. 6, all 6. How does that work? Do they get raises ever? How does that, what's going on there? How do we ever get to the point where, you know, they get raises again? How does what about their pensions? Are they going to get pensions again? All these questions are huge. County supervisor, look, the county supervisor races. So there's 3 big county supervisor races right now. District 1, which is that South Bay seat. Ben Hueso, state senator, Nora Vargas are fighting for that seat. Big issues about, obviously, South Bay, but everything about the county right now is about public health. Are these public health officers doing their jobs well? Would you hire better ones? How would you spend the county's reserves? Would you let it loose, or would you try to deploy it in different ways? Is there a way to increase testing better? Are they not performing as well as they could be? Should they be doing more for behavioral health? All these things. East County, Joel Anderson facing Poway Mayor Steve Voss. You know, are they going to, do they support Diane Jacobs' leadership? Diane Jacobs supports Steve Voss. Diane Jacobs resisted the effort yesterday to pressure Governor Gavin Newsom to open things up. Is that something they would take a stand on? And then the North, the District 3 seat, that's the one that could decide the partisan makeup of the county. Tara Lawson-Remer is trying to unseat Kristen Gaspar. Kristen Gaspar has sort of inched into this reopen stance, mostly with recreation she's talked about. All right, we've got more questions here. James Ito, please explain the elected and appointed city attorney issue. You bet. You bet, James Ito. Jim Ito, I would love to do that. Okay, the city of San Diego has an elected city attorney. The elected city attorney has 2 jobs: to prosecute misdemeanors within the city of San Diego limits, and the second job is to provide advice to the city leaders, the mayor and the city council. The mayor and the city council have long not liked that, because the city attorney realizes pretty soon after they get elected, every single one of them says, I'm just going to do what they want. And then when they get elected, they get in there and they realize they have tremendous independence and can actually have a major say on policies and other things that go on. Every single one of them realizes they're one of the most powerful people in the entire region once they become city attorney. And so the city council has put forward a vote for the November ballot, a measure for the November ballot that would say, actually, the elected city attorney only does the misdemeanor prosecutions, and we're going to hire our own attorney to give us our own advice. And so we don't have to deal with an independent elected city attorney. That's what's going on there. Fascinating issue. This is what you come to Voice of San Diego for. We get right into that nerdery quick. Can you talk about parks? Yesterday, I went to one that was on the list as open, but the yellow tape was still up with a closed sign. Yeah, we've seen and heard a little bit about that. Basically, all neighborhood parks, the ones you can walk to, are open. Robb Field and Ocean Beach, for example. Some parts of Balboa Park, not the Central Mesa where all the museums are. Mission Bay Park, not open. But if you have a neighborhood park and it has yellow tape up, you need to call the city and tell them to get that down, because it needs to be open. We were, just to clarify on that, we were one of the only places that actually forbid people from going to parks. That was not a county decision. It was the city of San Diego's decision, because that first weekend those parks got crowded. They said, you guys aren't managing the social distancing very well. So they said you're closing off parks. So they decided to half-see it and say, like, okay, you can go to these neighborhood parks, but not the ones that you drive to. So Liberty Station, for example, is open. You can't drive and park there. Walk there. So if there's yellow tape still up, you need to take it down. Let's see. How are San Diego's Native Americans? Great question. sorry, I don't have the answer, but I will check it out. I actually don't have Doug Clark's question handy. Sorry. Maybe somebody could send that. I know that you probably did. Sorry. Maybe just post something quick. All right, there's another one. National City, about National City. National City, that's right. They did decide that yesterday they were going to require masks. First city, not just to recommend masks, but require it. Now, I think a lot of people have been reluctant to actually require it, because you require it, you send a cop after somebody who doesn't have a mask, but that cop better have a mask for them to put on. If you can't ensure that everybody has a mask, you can't require that they wear them. Comment on the report, South Bay spike. Like, nobody's been hiding this. Yesterday, county talked openly about the spike in the South Bay. 95% of the people tested positive in South Bay were American citizens. Most likely people who had been residing in or traveling in Baja, came back, went to the hospital in South Bay. There's also people, obviously, at the Otay Mesa Detention Center who are testing positive. Check that out. All right. Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody's participation. If you have any more questions, get them in there. I'm sorry if I missed somebody. I'll get right after that for the next one. But please go to voiceofsandiego.org and check out that piece on testing. Testing's our way out of this. I'm going to put a big number on the top of our site that says how many tests we're doing on average per day, because that is the most important story right now. If we need to get testing to have eyes on this virus, that's the only way out of this entire situation, is to know where it is and isolate the people who get it, and then live comfortably with this threat, or live somehow with this threat. We can't live with the threat we don't understand, though. And so we'll be following that closely. All right, one last check on this. Oh, Doug's question, finally got it. Sorry about that. What I haven't seen is more people explaining why masks are important. Okay, great question. Why are masks important? Let's talk about that for a second. Mask isn't going to stop a lot of viruses unless you have that N95 version. If you have a bunch of those, you probably should give them to a hospital. But there's a couple of things that matter. If you have a mask on, you're not going to touch your nose and your mouth as much as you might otherwise. You say you touch your nose and your mouth or your face 1,000 times a day or something like that. Don't do that. And if you wear a mask, that'll protect that. But you wear a mask not to protect yourself, but to protect other people. You may carry this virus and you don't know it. And you're out there blowing, droplets around. It keeps it in there. It's not going to change much, but it's a way of mitigating a little bit of the spread, and it's a way to protect other people. And it's a way to say to other people that you're trying to protect them, that you're courteous of them. I don't know that wearing masks is going to change the dynamic of our situation too much. But I think it's important for people to realize that it does, protect you from touching your own nose and mouth. You touch a surface, you get that. That's a big deal. But it also protects other people from you. And it tells them that that's what you're trying to do. When will the mayoral candidates debate? VOSD hosting? That's a really great question. I don't know how to answer that. We are right now experimenting with new types of events. Events were a big deal for Voice of San Diego for a long time, or have been. And we realized, obviously, events have completely changed. You remember events where you went and talked to people and shook hands and took a little sip of coffee or whatever you were drinking and went on about your day? Yeah, those are over. So next week, Tuesday evening, Yeah, Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Voice of San Diego members. If you're a member of Voice of San Diego, we have about 3,200 people who have donated to Voice of San Diego. Members of Voice of San Diego make it possible for us to do this investigative work and explanatory journalism. They've been invited to our event. See that? I just touched my face again. I'm sorry. I know that's horrifying these days. So we're having a virtual member brews and news discussion. So we're gonna try to recreate the event. We already have 70 RSVPs. So we're right now experimenting with how events are going to look in this new world, so that we can try to have debates and stuff like that. I cannot answer when a new debate with the mayoral candidate is going to be. They've had already hundreds of them, it seems like. I've moderated myself maybe 7 mayoral debates. So it's going to be an amazing time to try to have different style events. But I don't know about you, but I'm actually having a lot of fun with my friends on the interweb, sharing and having some. Last night I played poker with some friends. Saturday we've been talking with some other friends. So I think there's a way to have a good virtual event, and we're learning and experimenting with that right now. If you're a member of Voice, Tuesday evening, check it out. We're going to have a member discussion. And if you're not, you should consider supporting. If you can support Voice of San Diego, please do. And you get invited to stuff that is as cool as that. Who wants to do anything more than talk to me and some of our reporters on a Tuesday evening now? You got something better to do? you got going to the amusement park or something? All right, Doug says also 6 feet of separation is not enough at the beach or when running due to air currents. Yeah, so there's some research being done at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Kim Prather, the doctor there, it's done a lot of research about how the virus can get aerosoled into the air and spread a lot farther in wind than in other areas. So that's part of the reason they've been talking about maybe being reluctant to let people onto the beach. So yes, it's look, wear a mask, don't touch things, don't touch your face, wash your hands. That's the best you can do. Stay away from people. I think it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be walking across the street from somebody or walking, far away on the park, and they're going to blow snot in the air and it's going to get in your mouth. Like probably going to be all right, but stay away from other people that you're not quarantining with. Wear a mask and wash your hands. And don't touch your face. How do you play poker on the screen? I don't know if you've heard. There's a whole array of online poker sites, but one of them, PokerStars, offers a United States online home game system. Sign up there so you can talk to your friends on Zoom. You can play a home game with fake chips, and I'm not going to tell you how you might settle up otherwise if you do put any actual money on it, but that's how you do it. All right, I have to actually go. Got other jobs, got to keep Voice of San Diego going. Any other last questions? You guys enjoy this? Should I keep doing this? Voice of San Diego at home, how's that going? You guys enjoy it? I do. I'm still getting the hang of it. We're working on the technology to bring in some of our reporters, so you don't just have to listen to me. You don't have to just listen to me when we're talking. All right, thank you all for your support. And again, if you want to join us on the member Brews and News event Tuesday evening, go to voiceofsandiego.org, VOSD.org/give, become a member of Voice of San Diego. And if you haven't heard, you can reply to, you can send me a note at scott@voiceofsandiego.org, and I'll make sure that somebody gets in touch with you with the information. Scott@voiceofsandiego.org. And thank you all for your support. And again, we'll keep getting better at this, and appreciate you joining today.